Hey, Kurt Refsnider here. In most folks' eyes, I'm a mountain biker, bike packer, backcountry enthusiast, and today I want to answer some questions about my gravel bike, which this is the setup I used for the Unbound XL. A couple weeks ago. It's taken me a little while to get to putting this video together because I've been busy, but I want to share a little bit about the bike and the gear that I carried and how everything worked and what I do differently, and a little bit about what I ate and how that worked and what I do differently potentially if I were to race that event again. So, bike, this is my Pivot Vault. It's a medium size for me. I'm about 5'9" with a 31-inch inseam, so this bike fits me really nicely. I have it set up with the Shimano 1x mechanical drivetrain and ran the wide range cassette on here up to a 1051 cassette and a 40-tooth chainring. That worked great. I never was spun out. Had plenty of gear for the short steep climbs out there, so love that on this bike. The fork I put on for the ride out to Unbound and for the chunkier northern course at Unbound, it's a Fox 32 taper cast fork. Absolutely love that. It seems a little odd with just a little inch of travel or 45 millimeters of travel or whatever it measures out to, and I loved having it. Just took the edge off all the bumps out there and helped in the dark on the really chunky stuff with maybe choose a bad line and hit some bigger things. That helps a lot. Use this Ergon VCLS seat post, which is a kind of cool design that also is designed to flex and take a little bit of edge off things, and I really like that, especially on washboarded roads. Made a big difference. And then the SR all-road core saddle, which I absolutely love for gravel roads where you have that just kind of constant vibration in there. And then up front have the Discovery handlebars from Pro Components and the wider 44 millimeter, some Pro Aero bars, which is half about being aero and half about having other hand positions, and you'll just get the weight off off your wrists and hands for a little bit and onto your forearms, and I really liked having those. And then wrapped here is the Ergon bar tape. For wheels, I ran the new Solex gravel wheel set on here with the Maxxis Silk Shield Rambler tires, and this was a 45 back here and a 50 in the front, and didn't have a single flat, didn't have any issues at all with tires out there. So for gear, I carried everything in three different Revelate Designs bags. Had this one, which is a new little seat bag that's coming out shortly, a waterproof one that inside was, ironically, my raincoat in the front, and then had a couple Tubolito tubes in here. In the frame bag, carried another tube. It was a actual rubber tube. That was a J. Peterberry piece of advice, is carry at least one regular tube and a patch kit for that one in there. So he did his advice, so I had 3 tubes in there, didn't need any of them. And then this was space for food up here. Had this little bag for snacks. This has the little liner in here, so you can just throw crap in here that crumbles, gets sticky, whatever, and then easily just pull this out and wash it later, so that's really slick. And then in this side over here, had all sorts of other stuff, which, I'm just start on this end. Basically, all of this is for fixing flat tires. I had 3 ways of plugging them, way of stitching stuff up. This is for little pliers for stitching. Had some boots. I think I'm probably the only person that raced with a can opener. This was left over from riding to the race, so didn't actually need that. Didn't use it either. CO2s, has wolf tooth chain lube, some chamois cream I didn't use. Pump. Had a paint stick for mud, which I used, and then this, which was also for mud. Didn't need that. A couple spare batteries for my lights, little rag. This was my cue sheet for mileage and time estimates, and then what I needed to do at each of the places that I resupplied and how much water I thought I'd need. First aid kit in there. These are all just little spare parts, spare derailleur hanger, and all that was crammed in this side right here. Then the rest of my gear was stashed in a Patagonia running vest that had a 2-liter bladder in and pockets for all my additional snacks that I wanted to keep very handy out there. Had my Garmin InReach out there for the tracking, leaving in the little back pocket, and then used a Garmin Edge 840 solar computer. And on this I turned the base map off, so all that showed up on here was the line that I had to follow. Makes navigation really simple, no confusion whatsoever. And on this thing you can get easily like 35 hours of battery life or something off one charge when navigating. So that was perfect for a race that was, 23 hours long for me. Then for lights, had my go-to Fenix setup, which is the HM65R headlamp on the helmet, and that's got an easy little removable mount here, so you can take it off during the day if you don't want it up there. And the BC26R light that lived on a little mount on my aero bars. And these I was able to get, and I did the whole race without swapping out to my spare batteries. So full night on high for both these worked out just fine. And then this is the little Phoenix taillight that lived on the back for when I was on roads with traffic and wanted to be a little bit more seen. Then for nutrition on this one, it's a little bit of an interesting one because the pace is just a little higher than the multi-day ultras that I'm used to doing. And so need to take in a little bit more calories. It can also be quite hot, and so sodium and electrolyte intake is really critical, especially for me. I lose a ton of salts through my sweat. And then you've got a couple of resupply, actually I think 4 or 5 places you could stop along the way and get snacks. But the more you stop, the more time that takes, the less efficient it is. So I plan to stop, I think 2 times to resupply and then 1 other for food. I think I stopped 4 times total out there. And so ended up starting with calories for about half the ride, which ended up being a bunch of Goo Roctane drink mix and gels, and then some cookies early on. And the mix was in here in the Hydropack reservoir. Had a couple of these little gel flasks, which can hold like 7 gels each, I think. And so I had 2 of these that were filled up with Goo Roctane gels. And then, like I said, cookies. So that was enough for basically the first half of the ride. And then I took more Roctane in little baggies that I could add to the reservoir again when I stopped and refilled with water, and bought basically candy bars and cookies for the rest of the way at gas stations. And that ended up being, what did I add it up to? I was thinking calories rather than grams of carbs, and like all the calories are not quite carbs, but most of them are for a race like this. So it ended up being, I think, about 10,000 calories total for the 23 hours I was out there, which comes out to about 430 calories an hour, I think, which my goal was 400, so I was ahead of that goal, which is great. And then that equates to, about 100 grams of carbs an hour, something right around there. So that was also my goal for it, and worked really well. I found that if it's longer than like 4 hours or something like that, my stomach won't tolerate just liquid carbs or like gels. And I need solid foods that have more than just like pure carbs in them. And so that's where candy bars or donuts or Oreo cookies or what else? Those were kind of the main things that I ate out there. But mixing in a little bit of real food every hour makes a huge difference for my gut. My gut was completely happy that whole time. And then, like I said, I lose a lot of electrolytes through my sweat. I've found that I can't even electrolyte drink like Roctane, that also includes carbs but has a lot of electrolytes in there, not enough for me. And so just regular salt tablets that are just sodium. There's no other electrolytes in here, just sodium. Took a lot of those, and then I also add the salt stick electrolyte mix, which there's nothing in there except electrolytes, salts. So I add that to my drink mix, and that combination of electrolytes from 3 different sources was enough out there. And it wasn't a super hot year, but I know from a lot of experimentation that even if it had been quite hot, this is the combination of things that works really well for me. And so what would I do differently if I were to do this race again? On the North Course, it's super rough as far as gravel goes. And like I said, my tires held up really well, but I think having 50Cs front and rear would be really nice. I'd consider running tire inserts. I didn't have any in there, but consider those for being able to run a little bit less pressure safely and not worry about flatting. And that could help with the comfort a little bit. But overall, body held up quite well considering all of the pedaling on rough roads that was there. So not a huge deal. I think I probably would try to stop a little bit less, and so that would mean carrying a little bit more food from the start and carrying a little bit more water at times. I had like little over 3 liters water capacity between the 30-liter breakaway bottles and the 2-liter reservoir here. that was fine for this race. If it had been warmer, might have been good to have a little bit more capacity in there, which is easy to plan for. I think that was about it. Things worked amazingly well for, I mean, it really was my first long gravel race. And fueling strategy kept energy really good. I got a little bit behind on energy, low on energy, whatever you want to call it, after the first few hours when the pace was just super high, and I backed off maybe 2.5 hours in or something, just a little bit. And then it took maybe 2 hours for my energy to come back around after that initial effort. So it was a little slow, tried to eat a lot of calories in that window, and came back around eventually. And then best energy was, man, in the last like 5 hours of the race. I felt fantastic. And I think part of that was having ridden, 1,200 miles or 1,400 miles to get there. And so top end kind of gets a little injured in effort like that. So the high intensity early on, I think, took a little bit more out of my legs than it normally would have if I had just been fresh and tapered going right into that race. But that was fine. That was completely what expected to happen. So hopefully that answers some of the questions y'all had about my gear, and let me know if you do have any others. Happy to try to answer them.